Because, you know, sustainable jewelry doesn't look any different from, let's say, blood diamonds, okay? But the point is that it's really important, just as with food, how is that jewelry made? Just as, how was your food grown?
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
We're live from Ben Reinberg's I Own It studios today in Laguna Beach, California. And we just keep rolling out incredibly talented women this week, and today is no exception. Kyle Roderick, thank you so much for joining us today. What a pleasure to have you. How are you?
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the revolution in sustainable jewelry and how that's changing the environment of the jewelry industry and also the definition of what luxury jewelry is.
Fantastic. So I believe many people view jewelry as beautiful and as a status symbol. And I think little or nothing about the ethical concerns, which you touch on. Let's kick things off. Share some more about the ethical issues that are associated with jewelry.
Okay. Well, number one, let's start with gold mining. So 40% of the mercury that's poisoning our planet comes from the 15 to 20 million artisanal gold miners who eke out their meager existence, whether, digging high in the mountains of the Andes and rivers or whatnot. They're in, Africa, wherever. But the point is that they use mercury in their gold extraction process. There's a great movement. It's so encouraging. There are organizations such as the Gemological Institute of America, which is based in Carlsbad, which has been working with mercury-free mining, a nonprofit organization, to introduce water-based gold extraction technologies to the world's artisanal miners. So this is going to have a huge impact. It's already having a huge impact on mining communities in Colombia, Kenya. They're doing all kinds of tests with it, and it's a portable technology that basically is there's a water tube and an extraction, and it kind of pushes it through a filter, and it separates the gold from the dirt. So it's revolutionizing gold mining. And so this is something to be super grateful for.
Okay. When did you become so passionate about jewelry? And what do you like most about owning jewels? Okay.
Well, I became passionate about it really at a really early age because I liked pebbles. I liked seashells. And I would always punch holes, and I did macrame, and I even made jewelry in high school and sold it to people and in college, and it was like macrame with shells and with Venetian beads. But the thing that I love so much about it is that when I was a child, I went to the Museum of the Native American in the Bronx. I'm from New York originally, New York City and Long Island. And I saw an entire hall with case after case after case of jewels that were made by different tribes. And each tribe had a different style, and they used different materials, and that you could see that they had used different tools to make things like, long bone pipe vests but then you also saw things like there were Venetian beads and even Chinese coins, because there were Chinese up in the Pacific Northwest who were trading with the Native Americans. And, there are many archival photos of Native American brides. They're wearing headdresses that are with shells and Chinese coins. And it's like this total cultural, what some people might say cultural appropriation, but there's always been this exchange. And jewelry it's a presentation of self to the world. It's a presentation of your philosophy, of your aspirations, of what you think is beautiful, and also of what you want to share with people, what you want to show people.
What's your favorite jewel that you own? Do you have a particular that you like?
Yeah, I would say, this is my mother's wedding ring, this is my father's wedding ring, and this is a diamond ring that, believe it or not, I found on a beach.
Oh, wow.
And so my parents have both passed, and so, to me, that's so meaningful. And the other thing that we forgot to say about jewelry, it's an heirloom.
That's
it's
right.
something that you can pass on. I mean, I've known people, really beautiful people, because I've been a journalist for 35 years. Okay. So I've interviewed everybody from prime ministers to PhDs to jewelers to prostitutes to, faith healers, but everyone has a favorite piece of jewelry, Like I interviewed Johnny Depp once. His favorite piece of jewelry was something that his daughter had made for him.
Oh, that's great.
And when I interviewed Prince back in the 80s, he was like, all about purple. So I gave him a giant amethyst, and he loved it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So share a high-level 101 on jewelry, because most of our audience doesn't know much about it in the precious metal business. Like, give us that high-level 101 for them.
Well, if you're interested in having environmentally sustainable, really beautiful luxury jewelry. Is that kind of what you're interested in hearing about?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so if you're interested in that, I would say, number one, you need to know that there is such a thing as fair mined gold and fair trade gold. And a lot of people know about fair trade chocolate and fair trade coffee, fair trade, organic clothing and that kind of thing. Well, beautifully, the jewelry industry is kind of where the organic food industry was like 20 years ago, like really ramping up and starting to create third-party certification labels and standards and practices that a manufacturer can, apply for from the nonprofit fairtrade.org. If you're interested in finding out about that, you can go online and read about fair trade metals on fairtrade.org, but there's a lot of fair trade gold. There's a lot of jewelers in the U.S. who use it. There's a lot of jewelers in England, France, Germany, Belgium, all over the place. So that, I would say, and fair mined gold as well. Stephen Webster, who's a really well-known British jeweler in the UK, he was one of the first people to use either fair mined gold or fair trade gold. I think it was fair trade gold. And also Pippa Small, whose jewelry is on the cover of my book, Bejeweled, The World of Ethical Jewelry. She uses a ton of fair mined gold from miners in small cooperatives who they're in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia. And what fair mined gold is gold, again, that's been extracted without releasing mercury or arsenic or other toxins into the environment. And so it's been heavily vetted by the standard certification organization. They work with nonprofits and geologists and scientists and all kinds of people to make sure that this mine is not polluting the environment. And so with the extra money that those miners get from selling directly to someone like Pippa Small or Stephen Webster, they use that money to then build a health clinic in their community, or they build a new soccer field for the kids, or they, build another schoolhouse. So the point about fair trade gold, fair mined gold, this type of sustainable gold, it actually is a win for the miners, the environment, the children of the miners, and for the consumer, because oh my God, like this is a really great product in every respect, socially, environmentally, culturally, economically.
So in your view, where are the ethical pain points across the ecosystem in this business?
The pain points?
Yes.
Oh, there are so many, Ben.
Give me a few.
Well, okay, so starting with the fact that the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, they haven't really super defined, there's no law what exactly is sustainable jewelry, right? So, and as you know, because you're in a very complicated business that involves a lot of local laws and federal laws and standards and practices, if things haven't been legally structured, there can be a lot of fraud, greenwashing. So I would say the biggest pain point, definitely. There are people, okay, just so you understand, I also work as a business development consultant for people who are trying to make their brands more sustainable, or they're seeking like, how do I get certified, and how do I promote this and how do I write about this? Well, every week I get probably around 8 emails from people saying, I've got an ethical jewelry brand, I've got a sustainable jewelry brand, can you please write about it? And then I go on their website and I see that they're essentially committing fraud because they're not providing any documentation of the environmental aspect of their production life cycle. They're not talking about the materials, they're not talking about the manufacturing processes, they're not talking about their package. So that's huge. And this is going on all the time. And that's why for luxury consumers, they need to know, look for things like certified fair mine gold, look for certified fair trade gold, look for designers who are working with nonprofit organizations, for instance, that help underprivileged women make jewelry, in developing economies. Because there is so much talent. Like, you probably know this because I think it's been reported in the New York Times, but there are a lot of brilliant goldsmiths in Syrian refugee camps, in Lebanon. And Pippa Small is a designer who employs them. She does the designs and then she puts them to work. And so that's great.
So you have a luxury jewelry report called Bijou
Review. Yeah, that's my Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
Share some of the context for our listeners and who's your target audience and what does the content focus on and where is it available?
Oh, okay. Well, I love jewelry. I love especially sustainable jewelry. And I suppose I need to lay out for context. Okay. Sustainable jewelry, as I think I've probably made clear in the previous comments, there's no hard and fact dictionary definition. There's no hard and fact legal definition. But we do know that if there is a jewelry company that has submitted itself to a third-party standard certification process, such as USDA certified organic, we all know what organic food is. The reason why that standard matters is because those farmers, those manufacturers have all been investigated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they've been vetted, and some of them worked for like a decade and maybe even more to receive that standard. So in the jewelry world, there's a new standard that's been created by SCS Global Services, which is an Emeryville, California-based company, which actually created back in the 80s the first pesticide residue-free fruit and vegetable standard. So this is a completely scientifically impeccable organization which works with various manufacturers, including foundries, jewelry designers, jewelry manufacturers, gem miners, to and also lab-grown diamond miners, lab-grown diamond growers, to have their life cycle assessment studied, critiqued, improved, enhanced. It costs money, but the thing is, once you have submitted yourself to a scientifically rigorous third-party standard certification organization, that is like gold, right?
Absolutely. So
that's your documentation. That's
right.
The point.
So in 5 years from now, where do you want this review to be?
You mean what I'm writing about?
Well, what are the goals for the review in 5 years from now?
Oh, well, what are the goals? Because I survive by monetizing my Instagram, my goal would be to have it, much more robust, so that I could do more videos and films, because I do have a YouTube channel. I have a couple of videos that I've done with people, like with the CEO of Chopard North America. And Chopard, as you may know, was one of the first high luxury companies to make a very big buy from fair trade gold. So, I mean, and they use a lot of, they've supported a lot of gold miners in their journey towards sustainability. So I want to have more people like that, advertising and funding.
So let's talk about sustainable jewelry. So for my listeners, they haven't thought deeply on this matter before you've come on. What do you wish they would do to be more conscious about going forward in their jewelry purchases? And do you have practical suggestions that you can advise people when they're out there buying jewelry?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, for instance, if they're really interested, and it actually depends on their budget, too. And so I can break this down by budget. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, let's start with the fact that because I have kids who they're starting to have friends who are like getting married and they're like, what kind of ring do I get, Kyle? Mm-hmm. And I say, well, let's start off with what's your budget, Mm-hmm. So, because if you really want to be environmentally and socially responsible, I suppose the best thing is to go to a beautiful estate jewelry store, buy a vintage ring or an antique ring. If you're really environmentally conscious, that would be my first choice. Mm-hmm. But if you're into these things like, if you want to support these brilliant people who are there's this amazing company in Israel called Lucix Diamonds, mm-hmm. okay? And the guy who runs it, Benny Landa, is a genius. And what he's done is he has set up a gigantic solar panel operation so that all of the lab-grown diamonds are grown by solar energy. Because the problem with most lab-grown diamonds is that they require a ton of electricity. Mm-hmm. And so they're actually quite bad for the environment because they suck up so much energy. And who are the biggest producers of lab-grown diamonds? It's China, it's India, and they have coal-powered, energy grids. So these are horrible energy grids. So if you really want to be cool and get a really groovy lab-grown diamond, you want to get one that's SCS certified as either carbon neutral or climate neutral. Or if you want to get like a really cool, super stylish gold jewelry, Prada has Prada brought out this year. It's all, 100% recycled gold certified by the Responsible Jewelry Council. So again, this is gold that has been vetted, investigated, the whole 9 yards.
So I wanted to ask this. When you come across jewelry on the secondary market that doesn't have the proverbial ethical background, so to speak, how do you feel about those jewels? And do they signify bad, guilt, greed? What's your view on that? Or perhaps more ethical friendly than buying new jewelry? Like, how do you feel about this?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people don't get it. Mm-hmm. So let's just first of all talk about the fact that, okay, yes, there's a lot of horror associated with diamonds because, there's been horrible civil wars that have been financed by the looting of diamond fields. It was happening in Angola in the 70s back then, and then it's been going on in Sierra Leone, it's been going on Congo, here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. So we can't escape that. But because I don't know if I'm looking at a given piece of jewelry on the secondary market, which I often do, because I have worked for clients who, have estate jewelry businesses. I don't know the whole story of it, so I don't know what it represents. But what I do know is that there are still many farmers in Africa, for instance, who turn up garnets and farmers also are miners, which is a lot of people don't know this. And so as horrible as many aspects of the precious metal and gemstone mining industries are, it still supports hundreds of millions of people around the world. And so when people say, you should only buy lab-grown diamonds. No, that's not true, because number one, not all lab-grown diamonds are created equal. And there are millions of people around the world who depend on natural diamond mining. I mean, the whole country of Botswana. Do you know about Botswana?
Sure.
They basically went from being, incredibly poor, resource empty country, but because the king was so smart in the 50s, he sent his son and all of his friends' sons to boarding school, and they went to Cambridge, they went to Oxford, and they got educated. They studied economics, they studied, like how to manage businesses, etc. Well, a year after the prince graduated from Cambridge, and plus he had married an English white woman, they went to Botswana and they had discovered diamonds. And so they made the decision, okay, we're not going to be thieving from our own people. We're going to keep as much control over this business and yield as much profit as we can from each stone. We're going to train people how to not only mine, but to cut stones, polish stones. I mean, so it was really great what Botswana has done. They have an incredibly high standard of living for Africa. Their education is superb. Healthcare is superb. Diamonds have done so good for them.
Can you tell the difference, like where people, I don't want to buy a blood diamond. Could you even really control if you knew where the diamond comes from?
Okay,
do they have that much detail?
Okay, so this is a really cool thing that's developing in forensic chemistry. Okay, there is a company in Perth, Australia, of absolutely mind-blowingly rigorous forensic chemists, and they have samples of gold from just about every major mine around the world, and they have samples of diamonds from every country, every mine around the world. And so they have developed through, I don't know, I mean, it's so complex that I can barely describe it, but they, for instance, are now called as expert witnesses when gold is stolen and is from mines and ends up in suspicious places. And so they have published their work in several of the most important metallurgical, the peer-reviewed, scientific journals.
Sure.
And they have been able to prove in court. The UK Privy Council upheld their testimony when they were saying, okay, we know this gold was stolen from this mine in South Africa, and here's how we can prove it. And they have algorithms. They have all of these things where they work out. They can actually forensically identify where diamonds come from, where emeralds come from. So things are developing in this realm of, I guess it's like detective work, because there are specific traits, chemical traits that they claim that they discover.
So I believe you're also...
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I believe you're also designing jewelry. Is that the case? And promoting certain other designers?
Well, I just design jewelry for myself.
Okay.
But I don't design it for other people. But I definitely promote other designers, and I especially, in my book, Bejeweled, The World of Ethical Jewelry, there's a chapter for each jewelry designer, including there's this marvelous jewelry designer who's a Hopi, a Native American, who cut the trees to build his studio with his own hands. And then his jeweler's bench is like a gigantic tree stump. And he makes all this incredibly beautiful sterling silver jewelry. His name is Dewey Nelson. And his work is actually highly collected in Japan.
So what's your favorite style today? Your personal favorite?
Well, I have a lot.
Like what do you gravitate to?
What do I Well, sort of everything, because I wear a lot of jewelry. Like today, because it's summer, I'm wearing like a lot of shell jewelry. This is like oyster shell from Mexican oyster. This is pawa shell from New Zealand, but I kind of wear that every day. There's one designer in particular I love, Tony Duquette, which has actually been around since the 40s in Beverly Hills. And now it's carried on by Tony Duquette's former business partner, Hutton Wilkinson. And I wear every day a Tony Duquette opal ring. So that's the ring.
What styles today sell the best? Like what sells the best in your
Well,
view?
but there's specific realms. Like in the bridal realm, there's certain things that will always sell well. Rose cut diamonds are beautiful because they're not the round, brilliant, blingy diamond. They're a little bit more subtle. They're kind of more old-fashioned looking because that's like an old European cut. So I think those seem to be selling well. And it's very bioregional. It depends on what part of the world you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this, the sustainable jewelry business and being an expert in this field? How long has it been going on for your life?
Well, I got my jewelry grounding, really. I worked for the Gemological Institute of America as a writer and photo editor of their textbooks back in the 90s. That was like my first jewelry job. And it was a mind-blowing experience because the GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, is also a premier gem grading laboratory. So the gemologists in the lab would call me up and say, "Hey, we've got a 50-carat cabochon cut Burmese untreated ruby that's unbelievable. Come down and look at it." And so I was able to, as with any material, once a person gets to handle a range of materials, and especially really high quality materials, it changes your understanding and appreciation for everything that's out there on the market. So, I feel like there's a market for everything in jewelry. And when you ask what styles are in and what's that, some of the designers that are doing really well are the designers that have very, how shall I put it? It's like they define their market and they market to that person. It's kind of like with every product.
Right. Absolutely. So the name of the show is I Own It. It's owning every aspect of your life. Was there a recent example, Kyle, that you can share with the audience where you had it wrong and you didn't own it fully?
Oh, I would say there's quite a few.
Oh, just one is fine.
Okay, so help me out here. So you mean an example of...
So we're all works in progress, right?
Completely.
So was there a recent example where you realized I had it wrong and you didn't own it fully?
Well, because I tend to be a very self-critical person,
okay.
I would say yes. But when did I really have it wrong? Well, being a writer, it's like it's never finished. It's like I would say, yeah, like I did an article, but it really should have been 3 articles because I should have gone into more depth. But because of the way things go, you're on a deadline. You have to hand something in. It doesn't go any farther than just that one article. So I'm always feeling as if I need to go into more detail because actually life is more complicated and jewelry is way more complicated than people really want it to admit. But the other fact is that it's natural human behavior to try and oversimplify everything. So I realized that, we live in a culture where people just want to oversimplify everything.
So what is the best way for our audience to follow you and stay engaged with Kyle Roderick?
They can go on to my Instagram, which is at Bijou, BIJOUX, review, REVIEW.com. They can read my book, Bejeweled, The World of Ethical Jewelry, which I conceived, wrote, and photo edited. And they can also, I suppose, read me on Forbes.com because I'm a regular contributor there, and I do one-off articles, but I also do series articles where I'm trying to educate, very much like you do, because you have experts on, and you're a high information guy, and I consider myself like a high information journalist because I'm trying to share information with people that they can then use to make good decisions about jewelry, and specifically sustainable jewelry, because, sustainable jewelry doesn't look any different from, let's say, blood diamonds, okay? But the point is that it's really important, just as with food, how is that jewelry made? Just as, how was your food grown?
Where do we get the book?
You can get it on Amazon.com.
Okay.
You can get it at any, you can order it from any bookstore.
Published in 2019?
It was published in 2019 by Rizzoli Books, and I'm happy to say that wherever you go in the world, I had a friend who called me up from Paris and said, your book is in the Louvre bookshop, Like, that's so great.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
it's well distributed.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up with our 3 questions. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay. So in our studio, normally we have a couch. I would say, Cal, lay down on the couch, close your eyes. How old are you now?
I am 63 years old.
Okay, you're 63. So you're laying on the couch. I tell you to close your eyes, kick your feet up.
Okay.
Go back to when you were 16 years old.
Uh-huh.
You're this sophisticated, elegant, intelligent woman who's been through a lot of experiences, has a lot of knowledge. What would you tell yourself at 16 years old, knowing what you know now, to give yourself advice to help yourself in the future?
Trust your instinct.
Okay.
And be patient and work harder.
All right. I like that. So it's our last day on Earth. God forbid. It's just me and you, kid. All right? It's our last meal together.
Uh-huh.
Your choice. What are we eating and what are we drinking?
Wow. It's hard because, I love to eat and drink. Okay, no, drink I know right away. Can I drink as much as I want?
Hey, it's our last day on Earth. You can do whatever you want.
Wow, okay. Well, then I think I would probably want as many Camparis as I could hold. I like Campari and soda with lime and like a whole lime squeezed in or a lemon. So I would, as much Campari as I could deal with. And food, it's so tough because I love all food. Probably something like some Italian food.
Okay.
It would be great. I mean, I kind of love Italy, So yeah, I would like some probably like steamed vegetables that are amazing and a little bit of risotto. And yeah, that would be great.
Sounds good. So in our studio, you'll see we have a grand piano, drums, and electric guitars behind me. And we have a black door behind you. If we could have any musician or band, now, Kyle, they could be living or deceased.
Okay.
Walk through that door and play us a song. Your choice. Who is it that's walking through that door, and what song are they playing us?
I'd like Igor Stravinsky to come in and play like piano parts from the Rite of Spring is a huge, symphonic work, but it would be cool to listen to him play because, he was such a modernist. He was so wild. I mean, he was like really into atonal stuff and like crashing, and he was like punk rock, only in the classical world.
Great answer. That's the first time we ever heard someone come in with that type of pedigree into the studio. I love that answer.
Well, if you really listen to Igor Stravinsky, he was like wild. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was like William Burroughs or Allen Ginsberg. I mean, he was people would like have riots, at his performances at the debuts because they couldn't deal with it. It was so grating and strange, and now of course we all love it.
That's fantastic. Kyle, thank you so much for coming down and joining us today. What a pleasure. If you're interested in listening to more episodes on the Ben Reinberg I Own It show, kick that right hand button and click subscribe. Click the like button as much as you want because Kyle Roderick, with all this great knowledge she dropped today, we want to let it go viral. To follow me, go to benreinberg.com. You can learn all about me and follow me on all the different social media platforms. And to learn more about commercial real estate, go to alliancecgc.com. We are the leaders in providing wealth to passive investors throughout the world. If you're an accredited investor, you want to invest in our brand new fund, the Alliance Medical Property Fund, click on our website and we'll show you how you can build wealth for you and your family and create a legacy. Kyle Roderick, thank you so much for coming down to Laguna Beach. What a pleasure, and we'll hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.